the lyrics are for the listener. The lyrics are for the person taking them in to come to a conclusion and relate those to elements in their lives. When I first wrote the song, it was kind of the catalyst for the entire album because I wrote it as an idea of what it was like to be a musician my whole life and what kind of my relationship with music was. I remember kind of like I set up that idea for how I wanted the rest of the album to go, for me to speak as if it's like, yeah, this is my relationship with music, but told through a lens of this is it's gonna sound like it's an actual relationship with someone. And so at the time, I had been trying to come up with a few songs, but it had been a little while, and I realized that I had kind of prioritized other things in my life, and it just felt like the relationship that I had with music had passed me by, and I wasn't going to get back to it anymore. So it really was kind of this sense of almost longing, of wanting to be back with someone, and kind of looking back on your relationship, like, well, was it actually all there? Was it actually a viable dream that I had, or was it just, kind of pun intended, just a bad dream to be chasing this thing? In terms of it coming from real life experiences, writing from a point of view that is true and authentic to the things that you've gone through in your life, I feel like is probably the best way to build a connection with one of the listeners, so that the listener can kind of see themselves in that lived experience, and they can kind of create an interpretation based on whatever they're going through in their life. And that's kind of the beauty and magic of music, is that you get to hear the song and hear the melodies and analyze it in a way that's going to be unique and special to you. And I mean, I feel like a lot of the best love songs or the best stories that are told is that people insert themselves into the lyrics that they hear. So really, I mean, the lyrics are for the listener. The lyrics are for the person taking them in to come to a conclusion and relate those to elements in their lives. It was a very, very powerful experience of feeling this longing, because I had tried for like a week to come up with some lyrics. I had tried to come up with instrumentals, and it just created this further longing to be able to make something. And it felt like a ghost at the time. It felt like, this thing that I couldn't catch. It felt like this thing that just wasn't really there. As far as like a final breath element in there, it's kind of this analogy where, you're not going to be able to move on, and it's like, I can't move on because you took my last breath, because you were my everything. I think it's got a darkness to it that speaks to what I was feeling at the time, and how impactful it was for me to really go through these feelings of loss. It's kind of a mixture of looking at myself and knowing that I'm not going to be able to just brush this away. I'm always going to have some sort of music creation involved in my life, no matter at what point of life that I'm at. And it's also meant to reiterate this imagery of this long-standing relationship, and how whenever you're with somebody for so long, they kind of shape the person that you are to this day, because you essentially grow together, and that person that you're with at the time is the person who knows you better than anyone. And because you grow together and you change together and you're there for each other throughout every single step of that process, no one in the world knows you better than this person. Where a lot of times whenever I hear a song, it invokes this almost like cloud-like experience in my head, where like I see it as a color. And whenever I arranged the instrumental of there, it had this very dark violet blue tone to it. For me, a lot of songs that are like that are songs of sadness and longing, and I wanted to make sure that the lyrics and the content of it also kind of matched that. And I had created the instrumental before I had written any of the lyrics. I knew that I didn't want to make it like a cool song, or a song about like overcoming, or a song about inspiring, or anything like that. Like to me, the lyrics had to match the tone of what that color was that I felt, and I tried to make sure that I implemented that with the lyrics and the story. I think that was I think that was probably the first line that I actually wrote, and I just kind of was thinking about how maybe music has kind of passed me by, and so it's like, well, I guess if I go on, I'm just gonna keep pretending that I am somebody that is designed and inspired to make music, but it's just going to be an act. Is that I'm actually not the same person anymore because music has left me, and I can try and carry on as if I haven't been irreversibly changed by this experience, but it's all just going to be for show. I think to be vulnerable, you have to be honest with yourself, and it's usually in those honest moments you see things for how they really are, and you start to kind of see the light. But you have to be somewhat vulnerable and say, you know what, I'm willing to look at the flaws that are going on here. I'm willing to look at the loss. I'm willing to look at the problem. I'm willing to look at the issues within this situation. Doing that is harder than it sounds, and so we sometimes will like put on this act where we are not really acknowledging the truth, and it being the first line that I had written for that song, I think it was a really good starting point, a really good guide to kind of keep me on track for conveying the message that I was trying to send.